Not all stories are meant to be told, but tonight you're about to hear the ones that were never meant to be found. Welcome to LurmoStories. Don't get too comfortable, and these aren't bedtime tales.
I got hired at Cedar Lake Camp the summer I turned 17. Everyone kept telling me it was an easy gig. Watch the kids, don't let them drown, don't let them eat poison ivy. The place had been around since the 60s, all pine cabins and faded canoes, the kind of camp that hangs old black and white group photos in the dining hall like trophies. On the first night, the counselors met in the rec lodge to go over rules. We sat in a loose circle while our director, Marlene, read names off a clipboard. When she finished, we clapped half-heartedly and started drifting out. But I noticed something weird. There was this guy leaning against the back wall. Tall, late 20s maybe, sunburned face, wearing a camp hoodie that looked older than me. He didn't say anything, didn't smile, just watched. When I asked Marlene quietly who he was, she said, "Who?" and looked genuinely confused. By then, he'd already stepped outside. Later, walking back to Cabin D, I saw him again by the volleyball court. The night bugs were loud enough to feel in my teeth, and he was just standing there in the dark, like he was listening to something under all that noise. When my flashlight beam hit him, he lifted his hand, slowly, like he expected me to recognize him. I didn't wave back. The next morning, at breakfast, the other counselors were exhausted from wrangling their cabins. While we shoveled in pancakes, I casually mentioned the guy from last night. "You mean Eric?" someone asked. The table got quiet.
A girl named Lacey frowned. "No, Eric's not here this year. He quit after last summer." I said no, different guy, older, hoodie, no name tag. Mylene overheard and came over. She laid her bracelet-jingling hand on my shoulder and said, loud enough for everyone, "We don't have any new male staff. If you see a stranger on camp property, you report it immediately. Understood?" Everyone stared at me like I'd invented him. That afternoon, I took my boys down to the lake for their swim test. They splashed and screamed while I counted heads. The water was still cold enough to sting. When I looked up toward the tree line, I saw the man again, half hidden between two trunks. He wasn't watching the kids, he was watching me. He lifted one finger and pressed it to his lips like he was sharing a secret. Then he stepped backward into the trees, and the green swallowed him whole. I radioed it in, but the response was just static and a clipped, "Check your channel." I switched channels. Everything was normal. Kids laughing, counselors shouting. But when I checked the shoreline again, he was gone. Only wet footprints trailing up the dock. Too large to be from any camper, too fresh to be old, leading nowhere. That night, the air felt heavier than usual, like the lake was exhaling warm breath across the cabins. Lights out was at 9, but my boys didn't settle until nearly 10. I sat outside on the cabin steps, listening to cicadas and the distant thump of the dining hall freezer cycling on and off. Around 11, a counselor from Cabin F jogged up the path. She looked rattled. "Did your radio cut out earlier?" she asked. "Yeah, why?" She hesitated. "We heard someone walking around behind our cabin, big footsteps. Thought it was you guys messing around, but when we checked, nobody." Before I could answer, something cracked in the woods behind us. Not a twig, more like a branch snapping under weight. We both turned toward the trees. Nothing moved. No wind, no voices. Just that dead, stuffed silence where all the insects pause at once. We agreed to do a quick loop together. She went left, I went right, circling the cabin. My flashlight beam skimmed over roots and pine needles until it hit something pale on the ground. A strip of fabric. I picked it up. It was part of a camp hoodie sleeve. Same faded green as the one that strange counselor wore. Before I could call out, I heard breathing. Slow, deliberate, too close. The kind of breathing you hear when someone is trying not to make sound. I swept the light upward. Between two cabins, behind the old flagpole, stood the man. His hoodie was wet down the front, dripping onto the dirt like he'd waded through the lake fully clothed. His hair hung in soaked strands. His eyes looked wrong. Not glowing or supernatural, just wide, with some kind of intent I couldn't read. He raised his hand again, that same slow gesture, but now there was something clenched in his fist. I couldn't see what it was. "Hey," I barked, louder than I meant to. "You need to leave camp property right now." He didn't move, didn't blink. The other counselor came around the corner and gasped when she saw him. But the moment her flashlight hit his chest, he stepped backward into the dark. 1 step, 2,
his body dissolving into shadows like he'd rehearsed exactly where to stand so the light couldn't follow. We both ran toward the spot he'd been standing, but when we reached it, the dirt was undisturbed. No footprints, no water drops, nothing. We reported it to Marlene, who insisted we must have seen a trespasser, maybe a drifter passing through. She promised to call the sheriff in the morning, but the way she said it, tight voice, eyes sliding away, made it obvious she didn't believe us. Or didn't want to. Before heading back to my cabin, I glanced toward the lake. The moon's reflection wavered on the water, bending with each ripple. And then the reflection shifted, like someone had stepped into the lake, breaking the surface. But on the shore, there was no one. Only the dark tree line and the faint impression of wet footprints leading toward my cabin door, then stopping abruptly, as if the person had turned around when they heard me coming. The prints were still glistening, fresh.
By the final week of camp, nobody talked about the man outright, but everyone acted like something was wrong. Kids were waking up scared, swearing they heard someone walking between cabins at night. 2 counselors claimed they saw a figure standing at the edge of the lake before sunrise, just watching the water with his head tilted like he was listening to something under it. Marlene shut down every report with the same clipped line: "We will not spread rumors during a youth session." She started doing head counts on the staff twice a day. She never explained why. I kept replaying the moment I'd seen the man up close, how he watched me, not the campers, how he'd lifted something in his hand, something he wanted me to notice, but kept it hidden in shadow. On the second to last night, a storm rolled in from the north, the kind that makes windows hum and turns the lake black and angry. I barely slept. Around 3 a.m., I heard a tap on my cabin door, one single knock. I pulled on a jacket and stepped outside. The storm clouds made everything feel low, pressing down. My flashlight caught the shape of something on the doorstep, a folded scrap of paper, soaked at the corners. No footprints leading to it, no sound of anyone running away. I opened it. It wasn't handwriting, more like slashes carved by a dull pencil, but you could still make out the words, "Check the roster." Lightning cracked somewhere across the lake. The cabins lit up white for a second, and in that second, I saw him standing between the trees, motionless, hoodie plastered to his body, his hand still closed around that object. When darkness dropped back over everything, he was gone. I ran straight to the office cabin. The roster binders were kept on a shelf above the lost and found. There were dozens of old lists, going back decades. I grabbed the one for this year first. Every counselor accounted for. No mystery staff, no extra names. But the scrap of paper didn't say this roster, so I pulled down older binders, 2005, 1999, 1991. My hands shook as I flipped through pages. Then I stopped on a group photo tucked into the 1991 binder. Cedar Lake staff lined up by the dock, all wearing the same style of hoodie. One counselor stood at the far end of the line, taller than the others. Same face, same sunburned look. Below the photo, someone had circled his name, Eric Hale, Waterfront. A note was scribbled next to it in red pen. Left shift early, missing after evening swim. The rest of the page was smudged by water damage. A sound echoed outside, slow, dragging footsteps across wet wooden planks. I looked toward the window. The man, Eric, was standing on the office porch. His fist slowly opened, revealing the object he'd been carrying all along. A counselor name tag, warped metal, his own. He raised it toward the glass, pressing it there with a shaking hand, leaving streaks of lake water behind. Then he mouthed something. Not a threat, not anger, just 3 silent words. You weren't supposed to see. The porch boards creaked once more, and when I stepped outside, heart hammering, rain blowing sideways, there was no one there. Only the name tag on the ground, cold and slick with lake water. That morning, Marlene announced camp would end a day early due to weather concerns. No one argued, no one asked questions. I left Cedar Lake before sunrise, driving away without looking back at the water. But when I unpacked at home, buried in the bottom of my duffel, wrapped in one of my shirts, was something I did not bring with me. A faded green hoodie sleeve, still damp. I found the tape in the break room cabinet on my first day. No label, just orientation, staff only, scribbled in marker. The manager, a wiry guy named Collins, tossed me a set of keys and said, "Corporate wants everyone to watch that before your shift. Don't fast forward anything."
He said it like a warning, not a rule. The TV in the training room was one of those old rolling carts from the 90s. I pushed the tape in. The footage flickered, washed out colors, static across the bottom. A cheery jingle played, way too loud for how empty the building felt. Then, the title card. Welcome to the Children's Pizza Center. Backstage procedures. A narrator started speaking, voice warm in that artificially upbeat corporate tone, but something in it sounded rehearsed too many times. Thank you for joining our family. Before you begin interacting with our animatronic cast, please review the backstage safety guidelines. The camera cut to the backstage hallway I had just walked through 20 minutes earlier. Except in the video, the walls looked cleaner, brighter, and there were no dents along the lower panels. No scratches either. Employees must never enter the service corridor alone after closing. If you must retrieve a costume or tool, inform another staff member first. The camera drifted toward the end of the hall, where darkness swallowed everything past the final door. A long moment passed. The narrator didn't speak. The footage didn't move. I thought the tape froze, but then I saw it. A faint shape at the corner of the frame. Someone's shoulder, barely visible. They stepped back the second the camera tried to focus. The narrator resumed as if nothing happened. In the event you hear knocking, tapping, or mechanical movement behind any service panel, remain calm. Do not open the panel. Document the time on your shift sheet. The tape cut abruptly to a close-up of the main rabbit animatronic, Bunzo Buddy, sitting on a maintenance table. No costume on, just the rubbery faceplate and exposed metal joints. The camera slowly panned around, showing the locking clamps on its wrists and ankles. Remember, our characters are heavy machinery. Never approach an unsecured unit. As the narrator spoke, Bunzo's jaw twitched slightly. Not wide, not sudden, just a tiny, deliberate click downward. The tape didn't acknowledge it. Next scene, a door marked Authorized Storage Only. The narrator's tone dipped, almost whispering now. If you hear children's laughter behind this door, notify management. Do not attempt to check inside. The door should remain locked at all times. Another pause, more static. Something scraped on the other side of that door. Not loud, barely there, but the microphone caught it anyway. A slow, dragging sound. The narrator continued, even quieter. Some noises are normal. Building settles at night. HVAC shifts. Do not investigate unfamiliar sounds. Stay on camera at all times. The tape cut again, this time to a handwritten note taped to a wall. If you see them outside the show floor, do not talk to them. They do not hear you. The room felt colder. I checked the hallway behind me even though the door was shut. The tape switched to a final shot of the backstage hall. The camera zoomed toward the same dark end, the frame almost swallowed in black. Then a voice, not the narrator's, whispered close to the microphone, like someone leaning in. Don't stay after the music stops. The screen went blue as the tape ended. That wasn't 2,500 characters. Something had been recorded over. And Collins was standing in the doorway, staring at me like he already knew what part I stopped on. Collins didn't ask what I thought of the tape. He just said, "Clock in. Stay on the party room side tonight. We're testing lighting cues." Then he walked off toward the arcade, keys jingling against his belt, like he didn't want silence catching up to him. My job was mostly wiping tables after birthday groups left. Easy, loud, bright. But every time the jingle played for the animatronic show, I kept replaying that whisper from the tape. Don't stay after the music stops. Around 9:40 p.m., the final family left. I stacked paper cups, tossed pizza crusts, and waited for Collins to lock the main doors. The building got quieter in layers. Children first, then machines, then conversations behind walls. When the HVAC clicked off for its nightly reset, the quiet felt unnatural, like someone had thrown a blanket over the whole place. I took the trash bag down the hall toward the employee exit. I wasn't supposed to pass the backstage corridor, but the shortcut saved a full minute, and I wanted to leave fast. The hallway light flickered as I passed the sign from the tape. Authorized store only. Someone laughed inside. Not a kid's giggle, more like breath catching in a throat, trying to imitate laughter without knowing how. I kept walking. Footsteps behind the door matched my pace for 3 steps, then stopped exactly when I did. The urge to check the doorknob hit hard, but the tape's voice came back into my head. Do not attempt to check inside. I kept going. When I rounded the corner, the motion sensor light clicked on, revealing Bunzo Buddy just standing there. Full costume, ears drooping, eyes half lit, One hand lifted like someone posed him mid-wave. He wasn't supposed to be here. Maintenance locked him in the repair bay at night. The latch on the jaw was hanging crooked, too, making the smile look stretched. Collins, I said, even though I didn't hear moving parts or servo motors. Animatronics always made noise. Always. Bunzo didn't move, but the stage speakers in the main dining area crackled, and the show intro music began playing again. The same jingle from the tape. Except the building was closed. The console was shut down. A door behind me clicked.
Not open, just the bolt sliding. Then the jingle abruptly cut out mid-note. No fade, just dead silence. Something shifted inside Bunzo's head. A faint clack, like someone tapping plastic from the inside. I stepped back, slow, trying to rationalize everything. Maybe Collins was pranking me. Maybe maintenance forgot to lock the bay. Then Bunzo's arm lowered a few inches, controlled, not mechanical. The servo in the shoulder didn't whine. It didn't sound at all. The hallway light overhead dimmed, not flickering, lowering, as if someone was sliding a dimmer down deliberately. Behind me, something knocked on the authorized storage-only door. 3 slow knocks, each one heavier than the last. I didn't turn around, couldn't. Then a second set of knocks answered from another panel farther down the hall. Then another. Each panel picking up the pattern like something moving inside the walls, searching for the right one. Bunzo's head tilted toward the sound, not jerky, smooth, following it with focus. I backed toward the dining room, hands shaking enough that my keys clattered against each other. When I reached the corner, Bunzo's hand twitched again, fingers curling slightly inward like he was about to step forward. The lights snapped back to full brightness, sudden, hard. Bunzo was facing forward again, arm down, completely still, like nothing had happened. I heard footsteps behind me, not from inside the walls this time. These were on the tile. When I turned, Collins was standing there. He looked pale, annoyed, and tired all at once. "You saw the tape," he said. "So you already know we can't talk in this hallway." He grabbed my sleeve, pulling me back toward the dining room. "We're not supposed to be here after the music stops." Collins didn't let go of my sleeve until we were back under the stage lights in the main dining room. The air felt normal here. Humming machines, soda fountain buzzing, ceiling fans spinning. "They don't move in bright zones," he said. Or at least they shouldn't. I asked him what they meant, but he didn't answer. He just locked the gate separating the stage from the tables and double-checked the latch. "We're closing early tonight," he said. "Grab your stuff." I headed to the break room. My locker door was slightly open. I knew I'd shut it earlier. Inside, everything looked untouched except for a folded piece of stationery on the top shelf. The paper looked old, yellowed, like it had been there for years. One sentence written in bold marker. "Don't listen when they try to sound like us." I didn't take it, didn't even touch it, just shut the locker and backed away. When I stepped out, the building lights dimmed again. Not flickered, not failed, dimmed, like someone was sliding every control panel at once. Collins cursed from somewhere near the kitchen. "Stay where you are, don't go toward the hall." Something whirred in the vents above me, slow, scraping, like metal being dragged. Then another sound joined it, high-pitched, too soft to be machinery. A voice. A child's voice, whispering a few feet away through the vents. "Hey, can you help me?" It was wrong, too breathy, too close to the microphone-like hiss from the orientation tape. I moved toward the center of the dining room, where the emergency lights held steady. From the hall behind the kitchen door, I heard knocking again, the same pattern as before. 3 slow knocks, then another panel answered farther down, then another. Something shifting toward us. Collins ran out of the kitchen holding a flashlight and a ring of keys. "They're out," he said. "We don't have time. Just follow me. Stay in the light." We crossed the dining room fast, but the lights kept dimming behind us in sections, like the darkness was following in real time. Every few steps, something brushed against the wall panels. A scrape, a knock, a dragging of fingers. "Why don't we call police?" I whispered. "They don't respond here anymore," he said. "Not since... Look, doesn't matter. Just don't speak to anything unless you see its face, and even then..." A voice cut him off from somewhere to our left. "Collins! Collins, I need help!" It sounded exactly like him. Same tone, same rhythm, but it came from the direction of the locked backstage corridor. Collins stiffened. "Don't answer it," he said. "Whatever you do, don't..." The kitchen door behind us creaked open, very slowly. Something stepped out. Not an animatronic, no clanking, no servos, just a silhouette, human-shaped, pausing in the doorway like it was waiting for us to acknowledge it. Then it said, in my own voice, "Hey, I'm stuck back here." Cold ran up my spine so sharply I felt my knees almost give out. Collins grabbed my arm. "We're leaving, right now." We hurried to the front entrance, the emergency lights flickering overhead. Every hallway behind us echoed with mismatched voices calling our names, some low, some high, some too close. When we reached the door, Collins jammed in the key, but the lock wouldn't turn. Something pressed against the glass from the outside. A handprint, small, smeared downward like someone dragging tiny fingers. The jingle suddenly kicked on through the entire building, loud, distorted, playing too slow, like the tape was melting. Collins tried the lock again. This time, it clicked, hard. He shoved the door open, grabbed my collar, and pulled me outside with him. The sound stopped instantly. All the lights inside snapped back to full brightness. Every hallway looked empty. Collins locked the door behind us, breathing hard. "You're not coming back," he said. "No one who watches that tape should ever be here after dark. They know you now." I looked through the glass one last time. Bunzo Buddy stood at the end of the dining room, facing the door. Not posed, not staged, just waiting. There's a 24-hour laundromat 2 blocks from my old apartment in Denton, Texas. The kind of place that still has faded soap dispensers, chipped linoleum, and those bolted-down plastic chairs that feel like they're made of refrigerated stone. Everyone on campus used it at least once, usually during finals, when every dorm machine was occupied. There was this unofficial rule, though: don't go after midnight. People said it like a joke, but nobody actually did it. I always assumed it was just college superstition, same category as the haunted engineering building and the ghost cart in the Walmart parking lot. That semester, my schedule was wrecked. I had a morning lab, 2 group projects, and an off-campus job that kept me out until 11 most nights. My laundry bag ballooned until it looked like a corpse stuffed in a duffel. So one Thursday, pushing a deadline and annoyed with myself, I finally caved and walked there at 12:37 a.m. The street was quiet in a way college towns almost never are. No scooters buzzing around, no groups yelling after bars closed, just a long, empty sidewalk and a single flickering street lamp out front. When I pulled the laundromat door open, the bell on top barely jingled, like someone had crushed the metal years ago. Inside, every machine was empty. Not surprising. What caught my attention, though, was how warm it felt, almost humid, like someone had just been running all the dryers non-stop, even though every one was still and silent. I loaded my clothes into a washer near the middle row. While I waited, I sat down and scrolled on my phone. The place had this weird acoustics thing. Every little sound seemed stretched out. The hum of the fluorescents, the buzz of my notifications, the slow churn of water in the machine. All of it felt louder than it should have been. Around 20 minutes in, I heard the front door open behind me. I glanced up, expecting maybe another student, but nobody walked in. The bell had definitely chimed. The door had definitely moved. I felt a draft sweep past my side, cold and sharp enough that it prickled my skin through my hoodie. I looked at the glass, half expecting to see someone pulling it shut. The parking lot outside was empty. I told myself it was just a pressure thing. Old buildings make noises all the time. But when I sat back down, the humming inside the laundromat seemed different. Less like electrical noise and more like someone breathing slowly behind the rows of dryers. A steady rhythm, paired breaths, then a pause, then again. I stood up to check, pretending I needed a trash bin. Every dryer door was closed, their round windows reflecting the overhead lights. Nothing moved. But the warm, wet air hung heavier, as if someone had just walked through the aisle moments before I did. When I got back to my washer, the machine had stopped early. No beeping, no cycle change click, just off.
And on the inside of the glass, smeared across the fogged surface, were 4 parallel streaks, like someone had dragged damp fingers across it from the inside. I wiped the streaks off the washer door with my sleeve, but the marks had this oily look that didn't fully smudge away. It bothered me more than it should have. I kept checking the gasket and drum, wondering if maybe detergent had dried weird or something leaked inside. But the metal was dry, completely dry, too dry considering the wash cycle had supposedly finished only a minute ago. I restarted the machine, forcing myself not to overthink it. The fluorescence above the middle row flickered every so often, but that was normal for this place. What wasn't normal was how the air kept shifting temperature. One moment warm like a sauna, the next cold enough that my breath faintly misted. About 10 minutes into the second run, the humming sound returned, only this time, it wasn't behind the dryers. It was closer. I could almost feel it under the plastic chair I sat on, like faint vibration coming from the floor. At first I thought maybe a machine was unbalanced somewhere, but every washer in sight was still. I leaned forward and listened. The hum wasn't mechanical. It had a rise and fall to it, uneven, like someone's throat catching slightly on the exhale. That was when the door opened again. This time, I watched it. The handle turned inward just a couple degrees, then released. No footsteps. No wind strong enough to explain it. The bell gave that same crushed jingle, a tiny metallic gasp. The air shifted colder. Someone could have been messing with me from outside, sure, but the glass was clear and the street was dead empty. The laundromat was small enough that if anyone was crouched beside the door, I'd see a shadow, a reflection, something. The hum beneath the floor deepened, a low, dragging vibration, pulsing like it was syncing itself with the flickering lights. I stood up and moved to the vending machine in the corner, just to put my back against something solid. The machine's plexiglass was cloudy from age, but I could still make out my reflection in it, washed out, stretched slightly by the curve. Behind me, the rows of washers and dryers looked even more deserted than before. That was when I saw movement. Not in the room, in the reflection. Something passed between the machines, a shape low to the ground at first, then rising, like someone straightening their back after crouching. I spun around immediately, but nobody was there. Just the same rows of metal doors and fluorescent glare. But the humid warmth had crept back, thick enough that my shirt clung to my spine. I heard it again, the humming. Only now, there was an additional sound laced through it. A slow, deliberate dragging. Not across the floor, along the inside of the metal walls. You know the sound when someone runs a knuckle down a ventilation duct? That hollow, metallic scrape?
It came from the back corner where the maintenance door was. That door was always locked. Students joked that if you opened it, you'd find nothing but dead cockroaches and abandoned detergent bottles. But something knocked from the other side. Not a bang, just a soft, testing tap. 2 in a row. Then silence. Then a third one, slower. I stepped backward without meaning to, my heel hitting the edge of a table. No other apartments nearby, no cars passing outside. No reason anyone should be behind that door at 1:30 a.m. My washer clicked again. Early. Again. The lights flickered. The machine door unlatched on its own. My clothes weren't finished. The drum was still coated in moisture. And on top of my laundry, someone had placed a folded piece of paper, perfectly centered, shaped into a sharp little square like a note left for a hotel guest. I didn't touch the paper at first. It sat there on top of my damp clothes like it had been placed with careful intention, not dropped or blown in. The edges were too crisp, too deliberate. I finally picked it up using only 2 fingers, half expecting it to be wet, but it was bone dry and warm, like it had been held in someone's hand a long time before being set down. Inside was a single line, written in shaky pencil. Don't use the middle row. No name, no explanation, just that. I looked up at the row of washers stretching across the center of the laundromat, the one I'd been using. The air around them seemed thicker, like heat rising off asphalt. The hum beneath the floor had grown into a constant low vibration, almost matching the fluorescent flicker overhead. I turned toward the maintenance door. Nothing moved, but there was a thin line of moisture seeping from underneath it, spreading slowly across the tiles like condensation dripping from a pipe. Except it wasn't dripping. It was pushing outward from the other side. Something shifted behind the metal panel. Not a person's weight, more like fabric being pulled. A soft tug, then another, like someone dragging a sleeve or a sheet along the inside surface. My washer door clicked again and swung open a few inches. The interior light flickered, then dimmed, then went out completely. It looked like an empty metal throat in the dark. The humming stopped. Not gradually, it cut out all at once, leaving the laundromat so silent, the buzzing of the lights actually hurt my ears. The sudden absence of that low vibration made my hands shake. It was only after a few seconds of that dead silence that I noticed something else. My clothes. They weren't all mine. Mixed into the pile were 3 items I didn't recognize. A small flannel shirt, dark with age, a pair of children's socks rolled together tightly, and a faded cotton handkerchief with initials stitched into the corner. I turned it over. The embroidery thread had frayed, but the letters were still readable. M.R.
I stepped back, and the motion set off something near the dryers. A panel popped once, like metal flexing under pressure. Then another. A rattling cascade moved down the row, one door vibrating after the next, as if something brushed along them from the inside of the wall. The maintenance door handle twitched. It didn't turn. It didn't rattle. It just shifted a few millimeters downward, enough to prove someone, or something with a hand, was resting weight on it from the other side. My phone buzzed so loudly it echoed. A text from my roommate. "You still at the laundromat? Thought you said you'd be quick." I didn't respond. I grabbed my clothes, everything except the 3 items that weren't mine, and shoved them into my bag. As I backed toward the front door, the flickering lights steadied for a moment. In that brief, steady brightness, I saw something I still haven't figured out. Every washer in the middle row, every single one, had fresh streaks on the glass. Not smudged like fingerprints, dragged lines, angled downward, spaced perfectly, like they'd all been made at the exact same moment by someone walking past and pulling their hand across every door without pausing. I didn't look back again. I pushed through the front door and stepped into the cold night air. My chest felt tight, like the heat from inside had followed me out and then dropped away in one instant. When I got home, I tossed my clothes onto the floor and unzipped the bag fully for the first time since leaving. The note wasn't there anymore. 3 nights later, the laundromat shut down for maintenance. No reopening date. No explanation. Windows papered over. Last week, walking home from campus, I passed by it again. Someone had slipped a folded piece of paper into the crack of the boarded-up door. Same shape, same fold. I didn't open it, but the handwriting on the outside was the same shaky pencil as before. Don't go back. And underneath, written lightly, almost like an afterthought, MR said you didn't listen the first time. I got the internship because nobody else wanted a summer position in a 40-story office tower that emptied out after 7 p.m. The whole building felt too tall for how few people actually worked there. My badge only opened floors 3, 12, and 18, but on my first week, I kept noticing something off about the elevator panel. There was a narrow gap between the buttons for 19 and 20. Not a missing button, just space, like there should have been one there. The spacing was too even everywhere else. I didn't mention it until the night my supervisor asked me to drop off a flash drive to records on 18 before I went home. It was after 9. Most floors were dark. I got into the elevator, hit 18, leaned back, and tried to keep from dozing off. The doors started closing, then stopped halfway. The lights flickered. The panel beeped once, like something scanned. Without me touching anything, a new floor lit up. A thin white bar appeared where the empty space had been. No number, just a glowing blank strip. The elevator started moving upward in slow, dragging jerks that didn't match the usual rhythm. I reached for the emergency phone, but the compartment was empty, just a rectangle of dustless plastic, like it had been removed recently. The cabin passed 19, then 20, then it kept going. The screen above the doors didn't show numbers, just a dark reflection of the interior. I could see myself standing there, clutching the rail too tightly. Behind me, in the reflection, was a sliver of the cabin corner, dark, but not dark enough to hide movement. Something shifted. Not a person, just the sense of someone adjusting weight from one foot to another. I whipped around. The corner was empty. The elevator halted so abruptly that I stumbled. The doors slid open without a sound. It wasn't any floor I'd ever seen. The hallway was narrow, too narrow for ADA compliance, and painted the same beige as the lower maintenance levels. But it stretched farther than the building's blueprint allowed. The fluorescents overhead hummed low, some flickering like they hadn't been serviced in years. There were no signs, no office doors, just a row of identical gray doors on each side, spaced perfectly like a storage facility. I stepped out only because the elevator nudged me forward with a small mechanical shutter. When I turned back, the panel inside was dark. The blank strip was gone. I took a few steps down the hallway, listening. The building should have been silent at this hour, but somewhere past the row of doors, something metallic clicked, followed by slow, scraping footsteps. Not approaching, pacing, like someone walking a short distance back and forth, wearing down the same few feet of floor. I checked my phone. No signal. The flashlight flickered every time I pointed it forward. There was a number stenciled onto the wall near the corner. I had to squint to read it. 41. The building only had 40 floors. And from behind one of the gray doors, something whispered my first name, perfectly calm, like it had been waiting for me to arrive. The whisper shouldn't have been possible. I hadn't told anyone I was still in the building. Nobody knew I'd been pulled to whatever this 41 was. The voice came from the third gray door on the left, soft, like someone speaking through a layer of fabric. I backed away until my shoulders hit the opposite wall. The sound of pacing continued down the hallway. Slow, uneven steps, the scrape of something dragging lightly behind each one. It didn't match the voice. The whisper had come from a fixed spot. The steps moved, tracing a 5 or 6 foot loop over and over, like whoever was walking didn't realize they were doing it. The third door had no handle. None of them did. Just plain metal with a small rectangle where signage should have been. All blank. "Don't go," that same calm voice said. My name again, the same exact tone. I didn't think. I bolted toward the elevator. The hallway felt longer now, the lights dimmer, the hum overhead vibrating through my teeth. When I reached the elevator, the doors had already closed. The panel was still dark. No buttons, no key slot, nothing I could use. Behind me, the pacing stopped. The silence was worse. I pressed my ear to the elevator seam, trying to hear movement inside. Gears, fans, anything. All I got was a faint clicking from inside the walls, like relays firing in some old electrical room.
Intern. The voice wasn't from the third door this time. It came from the far end of the hall, where the corridor stretched into a murky distance. Someone stood there. The lights behind them were flickering so badly, I could barely make out a shape. Tall, thin, wearing something that looked like office attire, but too dark to see the details. They didn't move. Not at first. Then the figure tilted its head slowly, like recognizing me. I pounded the elevator doors with both fists, yelling for them to open. Nothing. The panel remained blank, cold to the touch. Footsteps began again, only this time they were coming directly toward me. Not rushed, measured, steady, like the person walking wasn't in any hurry because they knew I had nowhere else to go. I scanned the hallway for anything, an exit sign, a staircase, a service hatch. There was nothing but the gray doors. The closest one was 5 feet away, no handle, but the metal had a slight give when I pressed my palm against it, like it wasn't fully latched. The footsteps grew clearer, shoes against tile. No dragging sound now, just deliberate, confident steps. I shoved the door harder. It slid inward with a groan. The room was pitch black except for a faint stripe of light from somewhere above. Cold air spilled out, smelling like dust and dry concrete. I stepped inside and pulled the door almost closed, leaving a tiny gap to see through. The footsteps stopped right in front of the door I'd entered. Whoever it was stood there, motionless. A shadow stretched across the hallway floor under the gap. Long, too long, slanting in the wrong direction for the overhead lights. Then, a quiet, steady tapping started. Knuckles against metal. Slow, precise. Like they were knocking in a code. Tap, 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 tap. I held my breath, waiting for the handleless door to slide open despite having no mechanism. But it didn't. The tapping stopped. For several seconds, there was nothing. Then the shadow under the gap shifted, turning. Whoever it was walked away, but not down the hallway. The footsteps sounded like they were moving along the wall itself, as if pacing the perimeter of the room I was in. I wasn't alone in the dark. Something else breathed softly somewhere to my right. The breathing was faint, shallow, and definitely human. I kept still, letting my eyes adjust to the thin stripe of light leaking from a vent high above. The room wasn't large, maybe 10 feet across, but the darkness made it feel like an abandoned storage unit. Concrete floors, bare walls, no furniture. The footsteps outside continued their slow circuit along the perimeter. Every few passes, the shadow under the door paused directly in front of me, as if listening for movement inside. Something shifted to my right again. A soft scrape, like someone repositioning themselves on the floor. I forced myself to whisper, "Who's there?" The breathing hitched. Whoever it was hesitated before answering in a dry, cracked voice. "Don't open the door." My eyes finally adjusted enough to make out a shape in the corner, a person sitting with their knees pulled to their chest. Their clothes looked like office wear, but filthy, like they'd been sitting in dust for days. Their face was pale, eyes sunken, staring at me without blinking. "You're stuck here too?" I whispered. They shook their heads slowly. "Not anymore." I didn't understand.
Outside, the pacing stopped again. The shadow beneath the gap leaned toward the door, as if something pressed its head close to listen. The person in the corner whispered, urgently now, "It copies the ones it traps. Doesn't let them leave until it learns how they talk, how they move, how they sound." The pieces clicked in my head. Why the voice in the hallway had said my name in the exact same tone. Why the steps had changed rhythm. Why the pacing had seemed mechanical, like someone practicing. My skin crawled. "Then, who are you?" The person smiled weakly, like they'd been waiting for that question. "I was the intern before you." A chill rolled through me. "What happens when it finishes copying?" "They go back," they said, "to the real floors. No one notices. Not until it chooses to bring the next one down here." Outside, the footsteps resumed, slower now, almost thoughtful. The other intern's voice dropped. "It knows you're in here. It knows you're talking to me." That's how it starts. I stepped back, my hand brushing the door. The metal was warm, body warm, as if something pressed against the other side. The intern rose shakily to their feet. They looked exhausted, barely holding themselves up. "When it's done with me, I think it'll finally let me go. It only needs one of us." The implication hit me hard. You wanted to take me instead. They didn't deny it. A sudden slam shook the door. Dust rained from the ceiling. The figure outside no longer paced. It stood planted directly in front of the door, pressing harder. The metal flexed inward. The intern backed into the far corner. "Choose," they whispered. "Either you run now, or you wait here and let it practice until you're nothing but an echo of yourself." The door buckled inward another inch. I scanned the room desperately. There was only one other way out, the vent above, where the faint light filtered in. It was barely big enough for a person. Maybe not big enough, but the alternative was waiting for the door to give. The intern didn't move to stop me. They just watched, resigned, like their fate was already sealed. I dragged a metal shelf toward the wall, climbed onto it, and reached the vent. The grating wasn't screwed in, just wedged. I pulled it free. The door behind me dented sharply, like a shoulder, or something shaped like one, rammed into it. I hauled myself into the vent, shoving upward through the narrow shaft. The air smelled like insulation and cold metal. The last thing I saw before pulling the grate back into place was the door bent inward, a pale hand with too many joints pushing through the split. I crawled for what felt like an hour until I saw light, real light, from an actual maintenance corridor. When I dropped down, I was on the 12th floor. My badge worked. People were still in the offices. Nothing down there had followed me. But the next morning, a new intern showed up. Same height as me, same build, same clothes. He smiled at everyone the way people smile when they rehearse in the mirror. And when he walked past me in the hallway, he whispered my name in that calm, perfect tone, like the thing on 41 had finished practicing.
Every story you've heard tonight is just the beginning. The truth behind these posts doesn't disappear. This was LurmoStories, but it's never really over. The next one might just be worse.